Most people hear $30,000 a year and immediately picture a life of deprivation. Cheap noodles for every meal, the same worn-out clothes on rotation, nothing fun, nothing that feels like a real life. That picture is wrong, and the people who believe it are usually the same ones earning twice that amount while still wondering where all their money went every month. The truth is that living well on a low income is a learnable skill, not a lucky accident. And once you understand the actual mechanics of it, a lot of things that seemed impossible start looking pretty manageable. Here is something worth sitting with for a moment. Research consistently shows that a meaningful percentage of Americans cannot cover a $400 emergency without borrowing money or selling something. And a lot of those people are not earning $30,000. They are earning considerably more than that. Meanwhile, there are people in the $20,000 to $30,000 range who have real emergency savings and are investing something every month. The difference is not income. It is the intentionality with which they treat every dollar that comes in. The foundation of making this work starts with one number that most people get wrong from the beginning. If you earn $30,000 a year, your gross income is not what you actually have to work with. After taxes, depending on where you live and your specific situation, you are likely taking home somewhere between $22,000 and $24,000 annually, which is roughly $2,000 a month. Every budget decision has to start from that real number, not the number on your offer letter. Housing is the biggest lever you can pull, and it is also where most people on tight budgets give up the most ground without realizing it. The general guidance is to keep housing under 30% of take-home pay, which on $2,000 a month means somewhere around $600. That sounds like a fantasy in a lot of cities, which is exactly why the city you are in matters enormously. Geographic arbitrage, which just means choosing to live somewhere the cost of living matches your income, is one of the most underused tools available to anyone on a limited budget. If your current city is charging you $1,200 for a one-bedroom apartment, that same $1,200 can rent you a genuinely nice two-bedroom house in dozens of smaller cities and towns across the country. You might earn slightly less in a lower-cost area, but if your housing cost drops by $500 or $600 a month, you have effectively given yourself a massive raise without changing anything else. For people who want to stay in higher cost areas, house hacking is worth understanding. The basic version is simple. Find a duplex or a property with a rentable unit, live in one part, and rent out the other. The rental income covers a large portion or sometimes all of your housing payment. Someone who buys a modest duplex and rents the other side can take their housing cost from $800 a month down to nearly zero. That is not a trick. It is just using the asset you are paying for to offset its own cost. If buying is not an option, roommates accomplish something similar. Splitting a two-bedroom apartment with one other person almost always costs less than renting a studio alone, and shared utilities bring the total down further. The privacy trade-off is real, but so is the financial benefit. Transportation is the second place people bleed money without fully accounting for it. The average American spends over $9,000 a year on getting around once you add up car payments, insurance, fuel, and maintenance. On a $30,000 income, that is nearly a third of gross earnings going toward transportation alone, which leaves almost nothing for everything else. The car payment is the most damaging piece of that. A monthly payment of $300 or $400 going to a finance company is $300 or $400 that cannot go toward an emergency fund, toward debt, or toward building any kind of future. The solution is not necessarily to go without a car, it is to be completely unsentimental about what you drive. A 10-year-old reliable sedan purchased with cash. Or the smallest loan you can manage paid off in under 2 years gets you from point A to point B just as effectively as something new and shiny. It just does not cost you your financial stability in the process. For people in areas with reasonable public transit, it is worth doing the actual math on going car-free. Between buses, trains, and occasional ride shares or rentals for specific trips, the savings compared to owning a vehicle can be several $100s every single month. Food is the third major category, and it is one where people consistently underestimate both what they are spending and how much room exists to improve things. The average household spends over $7,000 annually on food, with roughly half of that going to restaurants and takeout. On a $30,000 income, $3,000 a year on restaurant meals is not a small line item. It is the difference between having a savings buffer and not having one. But cooking at home does not mean eating badly. That assumption is one of the most damaging myths around low-income living, with basic planning and a handful of foundational ingredients. You can eat genuinely well for a fraction of what restaurants charge. The approach that works is simple. Pick one day a week, 15 minutes is enough, and decide what you are eating for the next 7 days. Then build a grocery list around that plan and stick to it when you get to the store. Grocery stores are deliberately designed to pull unplanned purchases out of you. Items at eye level are the most expensive. The layout is built to maximize the distance you walk and the products you pass. Shopping while hungry makes every impulse purchase feel reasonable. A list removes most of that vulnerability. If it is not on the list, it does not go in the cart. The ingredients that make a low-budget food strategy work are the ones that stretch across multiple meals. Rice, dried beans, eggs, chicken thighs, potatoes, onions, and whatever produce is on sale or in season. Individually, these sound boring. Combined across a week, they become stir-fries, soups, breakfast scrambles, stews, and a dozen other things that cost $2 or $3 per serving instead of the $12 or $15 you would pay for a comparable restaurant portion. One habit that quietly transforms a food budget is using the freezer aggressively. When meat goes on clearance because it is approaching its sell-by date, buying it and freezing it immediately captures a meaningful discount. When you cook a large batch of something, freezing half in individual portions creates a personal library of ready meals that cost a fraction of what frozen convenience food costs at the store. Entertainment and social spending are where a lot of people on tight budgets feel the most pressure, and also where they make decisions that undermine everything else they are trying to do. The social pressure to go along with whatever a group wants to do is real. When everyone around you is suggesting expensive restaurants or weekend trips that do not fit your budget, it is uncomfortable to be the one who says on or who has to explain why. But there are two ways to handle this that do not involve either breaking your budget or withdrawing from your social life entirely. The first is to be the person who suggests the alternative. Host a dinner at home instead of going out. Organize a free outdoor activity. Plan a movie night or a game night. People are often genuinely happy to do these things. They just need someone to suggest them. The second is to be honest with the people around you, at least the ones who matter. Good relationships can handle the truth that you are watching your spending. Relationships that cannot handle that truth are telling you something worth knowing. Libraries are an underutilized resource that most adults walk past without thinking about. Beyond books, most public libraries offer free access to movies, music, internet, community events, and in many cases, things like tools, equipment, and makerspaces. This is infrastructure your taxes already fund. Using it costs nothing extra and provides access to thousands of dollars worth of entertainment and resources. Secondhand shopping is another habit that separates people who stretch in their income effectively from people who do not. The idea that buying used clothing or household items is somehow embarrassing belongs to a different era. You can find the same items for 10 to 20% of their retail price at thrift stores and consignment shops. Some of the most well-dressed people around do most of their shopping this way, not because they have to, but because they have noticed it is simply smarter. A mindset shift that changes how you make purchasing decisions is calculating what anything costs in hours of your life, rather than dollars. If your take-home pay works out to $12 an hour, and you are looking at a $60 purchase, that item costs you 5 hours of your day. That framing forces a different question. Is this actually worth 5 hours of my time and energy? Sometimes the answer is yes. More often, it clarifies that the purchase is not actually worth what it costs in the way that matters most. Emergency savings are more important on a low income than they are at higher income levels, precisely because you have less room to absorb a surprise. The standard guidance of 3 to 6 months of expenses feels unreachable from a standing start, and that is fine. The goal at the beginning is not a fully funded emergency account. It is just a buffer. Even $100 sitting in savings changes your relationship with unexpected expenses. A car repair that would otherwise require borrowing money or skipping a bill becomes a manageable problem with a small cushion behind you. Starting with $5 or $10 a week, treat it as a bill you pay yourself before spending on anything else. Builds that cushion faster than most people expect and builds the habit simultaneously. The deepest shift that makes all of this sustainable is learning to separate what you actually need from what you have been persuaded to want. Marketing is very good at making optional things feel essential. The latest phone model feels urgent even when your current one works perfectly. A gym membership feels necessary even when free outdoor exercise accomplishes the same thing. Cable feels like a basic utility even when streaming options exist at a fraction of the price. When resources are limited, every dollar spent on something you were persuaded to want is a dollar unavailable for something that actually matters to your stability and your future. None of this requires a dramatic change in who you are or what you value. It requires being genuinely intentional about where your money goes, treating every dollar as a decision rather than an event, and refusing to let lifestyle pressure or marketing make those decisions for you. People do this successfully on $30,000 a year, not by living badly, but by deciding clearly what actually makes their life good and funding that, while being unsentimental about everything else.